All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started here. Welcome, everyone. Again, thank you so much for taking the time out this evening to join us for this case study on the Henry at Ranchstone, which is an apartment that we closed on a little over a year ago. We're really excited to share with you guys what we've done over the past year and answer any questions that you may have when it comes to multifamily investing. This is our team for this property. As you can see, myself here, Tiffany Span. I'm co-founder of Nextvia Capital, a multifamily investing firm. When I first started off my career, I started off in cybersecurity and program management. I kind of translated those skills to build a single family portfolio, and then eventually I scaled into multifamily, where I met my partner, Lupe Chow, which Lupe, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you.
Hey, everybody. Some of you know me from the military, and we even served together. I just retired last September 2024, after 23 years. I started investing about last 5 years in the Navy. So it was it was a really great, I guess, transition preparation. Even though I didn't even realize it, I was kind of preparing myself for transition. So I truly enjoyed a great career in the military, but now I am, you know, enjoy what I do in multifamily, in real estate as well. So if you have any questions you want to discuss, you can build this while working, while serving in the military. So I'm happy to chat about that. So I'll turn it over to Dustin.
Hi, yeah, my name's Dustin Miles. I live in Fort Worth, Texas, backgrounds in engineering, but have been in multifamily, I guess, for, I don't know, 13 years now. But yeah, I'm partnered with Hayden and excited to be, partnered on, with Lupe and Tiffany on multiple deals. And yeah, just excited to be here. Pass it over to Hayden.
Awesome. Thanks, Dustin. So yeah, I'm here in Conroe, Texas. I'm lived in Houston for most of my life, and like Dustin said, we teamed up about 6 or 7 years ago, kind of 2018, 2019. So we've been working together ever since under momentum. Prior to that, I've done single family. I really got started in real estate when I was a teenager doing flips and rentals with my dad, but always had that dream to go bigger. We were always doing the work ourselves, and so always wanted to work on the business rather than in the business. And multifamily is a team sport, as evidenced by this presentation that we're going through today with Lupe and Tiffany. So really grateful for their partnership and being able to work on this opportunity. And we're excited to show you guys how it's gone.
Here is a map of where our portfolio is located in Houston, Texas. And we're actually going to go and touch on each of these here in the next few slides.
Yeah, so this first one is the Henry at Liberty Hills. It's 228 units, and funny enough, we'll kind of look at another photo of another asset, but we own the deal next door too. So it's just kind of it's pretty cool. And then we have the Henry at Deerbrook. And both of these on the page are within 15, 20 minutes of each other too. So I guess next slide. And then again, these are kind of all in the Houston metro. So the Henry Rosenberg, we actually just refinanced that into HUD, so long-term fixed rate debt. And then we have the Henry Jones Road, which is kind of in the Cy-Fair Cypress area. Next slide. And then we have Woodland Hills, and now I'll hand it off to Tiffany or Lupe for Lake Houston. But Woodland Hills is just actually it's really close to Lake Houston. It's 7 minutes, 10 minutes maybe. So anyways, a lot of growth in that pocket. And I'll hand over to you guys.
So the next one is Lake Houston, and that one we closed just about 2 years ago in December 2023. Um, Ranchstone, we're gonna deep dive into Ranchstone today, but we are just about a year and a half into operating Ranchstone, and then our latest closing on Lake Forest that just happened a couple months ago in September this year.
So here's a picture of the Henry at Ranchstone and some of the key things that we really liked about this property. One unique thing about this property is that we acquired it from the original owners, and this asset was untouched, meaning they hadn't done any sort of upgrades, which later on in the presentation, we're going to share with you some of our before and after pictures. But the property was kept in really great condition. However, it had a little bit of deferred maintenance and nothing had been upgraded. We also like the proximity to another asset that the team owns. The unit count for this asset is 148 units. It was built in 1993, and it's also in a growing area. Great school district. We're actually going to touch on that a little bit as well. And it's in great proximity to employers and retails. One thing about this little pocket here is a lot of people that actually live and work in this area, which makes it really attractive to renters. And then also it had a quality build with character, which you can kind of tell from the outside. One really cool thing about this property is that some of the units are actually set up as townhomes as well. So it's really an awesome place to live. Where is it located? So it's actually 2.8 miles from the Henry at Jones Road. Just a few minutes down the road from another asset that we own. And Jones Road is a 114 unit complex to the north. One really great thing about this is that we can actually share staff between the two, which actually helps to cut down on expenses. And so between the two, there's 262 units. Another great thing about where it's located, it's in an amazing school district in the Cy-Fair Independent School District. One thing that we liked is also it lagged the comps in the area. Again, there's plenty of retail and shopping nearby. It's easy access to nearby employers and just good visibility off of the major road. And I'll turn this on over to the Momentum team.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Tiffany. So one thing just in Houston, these are all the submarkets around Houston. And so we've got that green dotted line as the average across the entire metro. And something that we generally look for, and you saw in the portfolio, we're in the suburbs. So I saw a few of you guys are in Houston. You're experiencing it right now, but that's where a lot of the growth is actually happening, is in those suburban markets of Houston. As you can see here, a lot of these markets that are above that dotted green line, which is the average, are some of those suburban markets. You've got Katy, you've got Woodlands, you've got the Cypress area where this deal is. That's where a lot of people are moving, and that's ultimately what's going to drive occupancies and drive rents. So we've got the Cypress area highlighted there for you, so you can see easily how it compares to some of the other submarkets around Houston. And then on the far left of that chart too, you can see some of those submarkets that have are notorious for having a lot of challenges, that have a lot of crime, that obviously have much lower rents, but also the likelihood that those rents are going to appreciate is lower as well. So this is just kind of a good representation of how all the submarkets are doing relative to each other. And then also, if you're looking to invest or looking for good submarkets around Houston, that's kind of our barometers. We really want to see, what are the averages, and then markets that are traditionally above that are going to be those high demand markets where people are actively moving and want to move to. And then here's just some examples of some things that we found, right? So, anytime you take over an asset, there's a term that they say is, what are the skeletons in the closet, right? And there's always going to be stuff associated with, taking over these large scale properties. You do as much as you can during due diligence. You walk every single unit. You walk with your property management team, with your contractors, but stuff's going to happen. And so one of those things where when we were doing the exterior paint job, we found out that the chimney surrounds were just a little bit rougher than we really wanted. And we had enough money in contingency to be able to go ahead and change those out. So we went ahead and did that to make sure the entire exterior, we didn't want a brand new paint job and then have, an eyesore with all the chimneys. So we went back with, we replaced the OSB behind there, and then we also went back with some brand new Hardy. We painted it; it looks beautiful now. But that was almost a $36,000 expense. So a lot of things too is with multifamily is it's not just one; it's multiples. So here at this site, we've got a ton of chimneys, we've got a lot of buildings. So if one item needs attention, a lot of times it's every item needs attention. All the buildings are the same age, so that's just something that you got to be prepared for. Generally, in our CapEx budgets, we like to carry about 8 to 10% of contingency capital just for these types of things. Another one was, the plumbing was CPVC, so it's a little bit more fragile. Anytime you try to torque on it a little bit, it cracks, it breaks, and then we have water leaks. And as you can see from the evidence, this it looks like a sink here in the kitchen had some leaks before. So a lot of our when we're going through upgrading units, a lot of the change orders that we're experiencing are due to these plumbing items as well. So honestly, these are probably the biggest items that we found. A lot of times there's a lot more when it comes to, your lease audits and the actual tenants that are staying there. A lot of times you have to re-tenant because there's a lot of tenants that shouldn't be there. But thankfully, we actually didn't have a whole lot of that. It was really just cosmetics things that we found, which are at the end of the day really easy fixes. And then here's also the timeline. I'll go real quick, and then Justin, if you got anything to add that I missed here. But this was, I know we're talking about kind of a year in, but this was really the first 9 months because we did a lot of the work in the first 9 months after we took over for a couple of different reasons. For one, the biggest thing is, curb appeal. You want to enhance that curb appeal as quick as you can, because the quicker you can do that, the quicker you can justify those premium rents. And ultimately, if you can drive those rents, if you can drive that NOI, you increase the value of the property here. So, enhancing that curb appeal, coming in, rebranding it. We, as you can see, we finished the paint within 3 months of taking over, and we actually closed right at the end of July too. So it was closer to that 2 month time point. So we flew through the paint. We knocked out the roof a month later. We had our first new units within 4 months of taking over. I finished the clubhouse in February. And so over the slow season, this is a good example too. Anytime you're doing a large rehab, you still got an active clubhouse. You still got residents, you still got prospects coming through there. And you do not want to be doing that during the summer, during peak leasing season, as we like to call it. So doing that over the slow season, over the holiday, the winter months, is much, much better for a clubhouse. So that's part of the reason why we started with the exterior first, because we weren't quite in that slow season. And then as we were entering through that slow season, that's when we went into the clubhouse and knocked that out. We got some of our pickleball court done, which was a formerly kind of a sad basketball volleyball court. We added a brand new pickleball court. It's really cool. And then by April, we'd already had 35 units completed as well. So within 9 months, we spent $1.5 million and almost half of the rehab budget. So we were really flying through it. And this is a big budget for this type of property. It's 3.3 million total, 22,000 a unit on average for 148 units. So it's a 1993 property. It's 30 years old. It needed the work. It needed the love. Like Tiffany and Lupe had said at the beginning, it was really untouched since we bought it. So, these properties need, I think, a lot more capital than people realize. But here we had a good solid budget for it. and the property looks really great, which we'll show some before and afters later in the presentation. But I don't know if there's anything I missed there, Dustin.
The only thing I wanted to just add on to what you said, I guess just kind of honing in on the roof there. So, part of what's kind of, I don't know if you guys realize it or know this, but we replaced the roof. The roof was definitely showing its age and all that. But what was neat, as soon as we replaced the roof, on insurance renewal, so part of it was we did a portfolio insurance program, so some of that helped with pricing, but a lot of it was the fact that that we replaced the roof here, and every insurance person wants to see a new roof. So, anyways, we were able to save quite a bit of money there. I can't remember the exact dollar amount, but it was around 60,000, per year or so, which is, I mean, that's pretty darn significant. So, anyways, we were excited about that, but that's, yeah, the only thing else I wanted to add.
Okay, so next slide. I think you want to pay attention to this one. So Dustin and Hayden, you want to walk us through the numbers in terms of how this translate to value increase?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'll take a stab at it and hand it back off to Dustin as well. But this is just what you can see from the seller's financials when we took it over, and then after a year in. So we're super excited about this. This property's been great because it's been so stable, and stability translates to these types of numbers that you see. So when we took it over, it had 2.2 million in total income. We're just under 2.5 now, and they had just shy of $1 million NOI, and we're at almost 1.5 million too. So that's a 49% increase in just 1 year, and almost 12% on that total income. So we've been able to really drive value from both increasing income at the asset and then also reducing expenses. And that's the great thing about multifamily, is both of those can be levers to ultimately drive the value of the property. So we actually bought this at a 5.5 cap, and based on that value, if you were to sell it at a 5.5 cap, that's a 41% increase in value, or going from 18.7 million to 26.5 million, or almost $8 million in value in just 1 year. So we're super excited about that. That's the power of multifamily, of scale, and being able to control the value of your asset, not just need the appreciation from the market. So some of those things like Dustin touched on, just saving on insurance, knocking out that roof, having that a part of our business plan was huge, because that enabled us to save 60,000 plus on our insurance cost. I mean, that's huge when you look at value at the end of the day. Just that alone, divided by a 5.5 cap, is over $1 million in value, just right there. So so that's awesome. Some of the other things that we reduced is, we always protest our taxes. We saw a little bit of savings there, huge savings in insurance. They were paying almost $1,800 a unit at this community, and now we're under $1,000 a door. So we saw huge savings on our insurance, and that was a combination of not only doing the roof, but we also have a master policy for all of our communities. Another benefit of having with scale, you can reduce those costs and leverage your vendors. That's another way that you can extract value as well. And some other items that we saw, is payroll. So we have an asset just down the road, and like Rupe and Tiffany had said at the top of the call, some being able to split staff between the two can significantly reduce your payroll burden. And that's a huge way to drive value as well. And then repairs and maintenance, since we're putting a lot of money into it, it's brand new, it's not constantly needing repairs now. That's another way that we were able to save on our expenses as well. And then the business plan here is 100% of units are being upgraded. And so if you're not constantly putting a bunch of money just into a normal make ready, and you're actually capitalizing those expenses through doing full upgrades on the interiors, that helps save a lot too, obviously. So we've seen benefits on both the income and the expense.
The only other thing, I guess, before Lupe or Tiffany chats about the next page, but the only other thing I wanted to add was just kind of highlight the stability of this asset. So as Aid mentioned, a lot of the not a lot of them, but some of the assets that we buy, it's we're having to re-tenant or sometimes they're in order to keep occupancy up, they let people in that honestly probably, can't really afford to live there. And so, but this asset was very stable. As Tiffany mentioned, these were, that they've owned this asset for 30 years. There was actually a resident that lived there or has lived there, the entire time that the property's been built as well. I think they changed units once, but other than that, they've been there, for 30 years. And I think that speaks volumes to you want to see that stability. You want to see that strong tenant base, that it's their home and they've, she's lived there for a long, long time. And there's a lot of other residents that, maybe not 30 years, but 10 plus years that, have lived there. And so, anyways, we're really excited. This has been a very, from the income perspective, very, very, consistent. I was just, looking at the financials earlier and it was, amazing that the consistency. So, anyways, next slide.
If you have any questions, please feel free to unmute and or type in the chat. We'll answer that or at the end as well if you want to wait. We just want to give you some visual the work that was done. Like you heard earlier, when we talk about the money that was spent on these upgrades. So this is the clubhouse before, and it really wasn't that bad. But it is a little dated, and the color is kind of inconsistent. So we did nothing major, but the paint, the furniture, and the flooring just kind of like really refresh the space, make it bright, make it open. And as you can see, it makes a big difference from before. And Clubhouse was one of the first projects because it really makes a difference when people walks in, and if they are considering renting here, this is the first place they're gonna see. The gym as well. The exterior, mainly just the paint. As you can see, let me show you. Again, it's just brighten up everything, bring everything up to date, and refresh the color with the roof, the paint, but nothing major to the structure itself. And another thing Hayden mentioned was the curb appeal. So the signage that was added, so we rebranded and obviously, step up on the marketing as well. So this is the after for exterior. And just want to show you the unit upgrades. This is the before picture, and they're not terrible, but again, when you want to drive up the rent, right, you want to make it super appealing and super attractive for anybody walks in. So really simple upgrade on paint, flooring, countertop, the fixtures, cabinets. So you can see how, a transformation you make the unit look compared to this. So now it's in 2025. And there are a few things that went wrong. So I'll let Dustin or Hayden talk about this.
Sure. Yeah, I'll take a stab at it first. So like any large scale construction project, there's going to be things that happen, right? Things that come up. And I think that's one, the importance of having the boots on the ground and having that team that can oversee it so that you can catch those things midway through, and not not after they've been fully completed. And so some of the examples, like we painted the transformers around, but when they started doing them, you can kind of even see there the overspray on the concrete pad, and then for one, just the color they chose. Not really sure where they got that color selection, but they went with like a lime green, which we definitely didn't want. So we caught that early, and then you can kind of see the color that we went with after the fact, which blends into that landscaping. That's the color it should be. But it's one of those things where it's like, I would have never guessed that's the color that they would initially chose, but they did. And you got to be able to catch those things, because we all have our visions in our head, and we can communicate them as well as we can. But a lot of times, as time passes, it's hard to remember all of those details, and trying to get a contractor or vendor to execute that vision every step of the way, whether you're there or not, can be challenging sometimes. And so that's why it's important to just have a lot of communication, be very hands-on. Some of the other things that we found, like in the gym, that mirror wall. So that wall, from just looking at it normally, you would expect, hey, that's a straight wall, that looks really good. But then we put those mirrors on it, and we realized that there's a big bow in the wall, actually. And we'd had about 3/4 to a quarter inch, or 3/4 of an inch to about an inch on the top and sides of those mirrors, that a kid might play with, stick his hand back there, potentially pull a mirror off the wall and hurt himself. And so that's not something we saw or knew about until we got up there and actually started mounting those mirrors. So you can kind of see there, it's a little tough to tell, but we had to do a board and batten detail, actually. So we trimmed it out, which we really weren't planning on to initially. But that trim helped fill that gap so that nobody could get their hands behind there. So um, again, liability is something that you got to think about here. You're dealing with tenants, these are people's homes. You want to make sure they're safe, and you don't want it to cause a problem down the road. So those are things that you got to think about. We did some shiplap on the ceiling of the gym too, and we had to redo it probably 4 or 5 times because we could not get the joints to blend and look seamless. And then we had to do, it was a lender required extension that's our handicap space and the access to the ramp. We had to pour all new ramp there. But you can kind of see, it's a little wavy there, and it was just not up to our standards. And I think that's a really good example of something where, on these big properties, sometimes it's easy to say, well, it's done, and I don't want to have to rip it back out and do it again. And it looks okay, right? You can probably get by with it, but you need to hold your vendors to a really high standard too. I mean, especially like on the exterior paint. We walk every single building, every single breezeway. We spot and call out every single drip. So you gotta have that attention to detail, because if you don't communicate that attention to detail to your vendors and your staff, then when you're not there, they're not going to have that attention to detail either. And yeah, I'll just go real quick on ways to speed things up. So this is some things to consider when working on these large scale projects. So that preparation leading into them is key. Having good vendors, having those relationships is huge. Somebody that is going to come through and do good work, or when something is wrong is going to address it, is huge. So having dedicated contractors, dedicated vendors, again, like I said earlier, being able to leverage them on your entire portfolio is really helpful too, because then you can negotiate better rates, and all the communities save at that point as well. Renovating all the units, I'd highly recommend that. A lot of people only do a portion of the units, or sometimes some units will already be renovated, and you want to just renovate the rest. But a lot of times you get into these communities and realize that the finish outs on a lot of these units are all different. Different fixtures, different appliances, different floors, different paint. So standardizing your scope of work, making it programmatic, doing all the units makes your life way, way easier, because you don't want to have to, every time a unit comes up for renovation, answer those questions. Well, This one has a towel rack, but the other one didn't. Or this one, you know, the fan looks like this, and the other, you know, it has black blades, and the other one has silver blades. You know, because you're constantly going to be answering those questions on what to do with your vendors or your management teams. So standardize that, addressing it. We've got some examples of like how detailed to be in this presentation as well. Some other things to consider, you know, you've got scale. This is a 148 unit complex. We're doing 148 units on the interiors. That's a lot of scale for a vendor. So lock those prices and materials in place ahead of time. So while you're under contract, you know, have your contractors walk the property with you, have them bid everything, get them to agree, hey, this is the contract price throughout the duration of the renovation, so that you know, you basically have a fixed cost. There may be some change orders every now and then, but you want to make sure that most of your prices are locked in. Check on things like HOA approvals or permits required. We've ran into a few HOAs now, and that's super important because you don't want to do work and then realize that the HOA is not going to approve you for that work. So make sure you get their approval. We've ran into that in some instances where we had just started a project, thankfully, and realized we needed to get HOA approval. So you don't want to have to rip out or redo work because, again, these are very big projects. These are very expensive projects, and it can be cost prohibitive to have to do it 2 or 3 times. So you don't want to do that. And then, like I touched on earlier, just buy in bulk. Try to standardize everything, drive your costs down, and the more guesswork you can take out of it, the better.
Hayden, we do have a question on, it's related to unit renovation from Natalie. How do you manage to upgrade 100% of the units if the tenants are stable and don't move out?
Yeah, good question. So, it's kind of, you have to stay on top of it. I'll tell you that. And it can get kind of complex. So, at the get-go, it's not that big of a deal. Naturally, you're going to have a handful of your units give you what's called an NTV, notice to vacate. So they're going to give you notice 60, 90 days in advance. Say, hey, I'm moving out at the expiration of my lease. I'm going to go buy a house or live somewhere else, or whatever the reason may be. So that, but then your other portion will renew. Sometimes, a lot of times we see that renewal ratio between 50 to 60%. So easy math, you can just assume, let's say half my tenants are going to renew, half my tenants are going to move out. In that first year, it's not that big of a deal because, you can, as people are just giving you notice to vacate, so you can just renovate those notice to vacates. But as you get into your deeper and deeper into your renovation program, you're going to want to make sure that you can get into those units. So right now, for example, we're a year in, we're entering our second year of our interior renovation program. So now what we're doing, a strategy is to maximize value, but then also to be able to renovate as many units as possible, is we're increasing our renewals quite a bit. So naturally, by increasing your renewal percentage, you're going to lower your retention percentage. And those that do stay, you're going to get a big pop on your renewal. So in year 2, super important to, don't just have whatever you're doing, keeping them flat or just the basic 1 to 3%. Don't just do that, because your average renewal ratio is going to stay about the same. You need to go 5 or 7%, or maybe even a 10%, depending on how aggressive you want to be. But you need to really increase those renewals so that you can either get people to sign renewals at higher rates and you can get that delta for the next 12 months, or they're going to give you a notice to vacate and they'll move somewhere else, and then you can get in and renovate that unit. A third option as well is you could offer them to transfer. You can say, hey, we'll waive your transfer fee, and we'll put you got to pay the higher rate, but we're going to waive your transfer fee, and we'll put you in a brand new unit at renewal time as well. And then once year 2 ends, you enter into year 3, then you have to do that third option, which is transfer them. A lot of people, there's inevitably going to be some people that hold out, that just love their unit. But you've got to get into every single unit. And so otherwise you'll have a handful, a dozen, a half dozen units that you never get into, and it'll always be patchy. So Those are just some strategies. It can take some time, but that's why it's so important to be proactive and do it now. And year over year, really looking at that. What's our strategy for this month, for this quarter, for this week, even? You need to be meeting with your teams. I see, Nicholas, how do you deal with the holdouts? So again, yeah, there's a few phases to how you could deal with the holdouts. You can increase them on the renewal. You can offer them to transfer. You could potentially do a live-in renovation. I would not recommend that, especially at the extent that we're doing. But by the time you're entering into the last phase of your renovation, figuring out strategies and getting with your leasing team to get them to transfer to a new unit is probably the best. But before then, I think it's important to extract as much value as well too. And if somebody's going to hold out for another year, you could potentially get a little extra rent for that as well. So it's something that you just got to manage and be flexible and proactive about to really get through.
Thanks,
And
Aiden.
here's
Yeah,
just an
sorry, I was trying to come off from you.
Okay.
One of my question was really focused around folks that are really dialed into I love my unit. I want to stay in my unit. I mean, I'm just curious what type of strategies you would employ if you had more than one or multiples. Like you indicated, you certainly don't want to do a live-in renovation. So just curious what your experience is with that, or if you've what some strategies have been deployed in the past.
Yeah, a couple things too is again, identifying those units is going to be really important too. So we like to send our renewals out 90 days in advance. So if you're getting pushback, they're going to go to the staff and say, hey, I want to stay in my unit, but I don't want to transfer, or I don't want to pay this high renewal fee, or I don't want to move out. They're going to give you some reason, but they're going to give you they're going to give you that communication once they see that renewal notice. So a couple things that you can do. A lot of times these apartment complexes are just like we have programmatic business plans. A lot of times builders and developers have programmatic business plans as well. So a lot of times the unit that they're in, there may be another unit that's almost identical to that maybe has already been renovated, or maybe you can see between now and their notice or their renewal, there's a unit that's going to become available, and then I can get in and renovate that and have it ready for them to transfer to, so that that makes it a little bit easier. Yeah, it's not that same exact unit, but it's the same style of unit, right? So looking through and looking through your rent roll and saying, hey, what units do we have coming available? Which ones are scheduled to be renovated? So for us, we do pre-renovation walks too, while that tenant's still living there. So 30 days prior to them moving, we're getting into that unit, making sure that we have a good understanding, so that when they move out, we can hit the ground running as well. That's a big part of this conversation as well. Because if you can minimize that time, and then you have that holdout unit that's coming and say, well, I just renovated this unit in 2 weeks. I've got a week extra before you have to transfer or leave. Then I can get you, then the staff can say, hey, I can get you in this other unit, same exact floor plan, but it's upgraded, and maybe give them a deal, especially if they're a great paying tenant. And so you can work it around like that, but it's something you gotta be in constant communication with your staff and stay on top of. Otherwise, you're gonna miss out on those opportunities, or you're gonna have tenants that are really upset, stuff like that. So it's definitely something to be proactive about. And then on this slide specifically, I was just showing, like I touched on a couple slides ago, how detailed to be. So this is just an example of, our selections for our interior renovation program. We use this spreadsheet. It's a pretty comprehensive spreadsheet, but we just took a screenshot of it just to look at like paint, flooring, and the details and where that goes, and the ceilings, the bathroom walls, the kitchen, and so forth. So all these different areas, we want to make it very, very seamless. And then this is what we're giving over to our general contractor, so that once you get into that renovation program, again, you want it to be as seamless as possible. So you got to be detailed with this. You can't just assume. Like I said earlier with the transformers, that was an example of where we assumed, and that's kind of what we ended up with. So especially on these more complex projects, especially where you've got a lot of moving parts like these interior units. It sounds really simple at high level, but when you get into an interior renovation program, it's actually very um, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of variables that you got to stay on top of, and so trying to just systematize everything. Something that we always think of with really anything that we're doing is, can we do this at scale? That's a question that we always ask ourselves. And I would recommend anybody that's trying to do this, because one, complex as itself is that scale when looking at it from a single family perspective to a multifamily perspective, right? That first multifamily property that you do from going single family, you've just instantly got scale, right? But now, what if you have a half dozen or a dozen properties? It's, can I do what I'm doing at scale? So that's always the question that we ask ourselves. And if we can't, we either need to stop, we either need to not do it, or we need to design that system around it so that we can do it.
So as far as web presence and all that, so some of the assets that we purchased and all that, some of them don't, they don't have updated pictures. They you go to the actual properties, sometimes they have upgrades and they're not shown, on their website and all that. And so in a lot of times, when people are going to apartments.com, for instance, or a website, usually, I mean, yeah, they want to see, the complex and see some of the pictures and all that, but they really want to see, where they're going to be living, the unit, the kitchen, the bathroom, all the, the important stuff. And so we feel it's, just really important to have nice, clean, bright pictures that, represent, what they would, potentially be hopefully living in. And then just trying to make it easy for them, and just basically trying to take away as many hurdles to potentially live at one of our assets. So because there's honestly there's a lot of apartments, there's a lot of options, and so we're honored that that we have so many people that have chosen to live at these assets and call it home. I mean, I know I've lived in apartments before too, and so yeah, just try to give people an elevated feel, an elevated look. And then another thing that we're really big on is Google reviews. And so if any of you guys are investors in Ranchstone, feel free to go on to Google and give us a Google review, please. But we take a lot of pride in this. The entire portfolio, except for the new asset we just purchased, everything's a 4.0 or above, and that took a lot of work. Some of these, Ranchstone was, like I said, was run really well, good, good tenant base and all that. So it was already at 4.3, but we've had some others where we started at 3.2, and it's a long uphill battle. It takes it depends on how many reviews you have. There's a calculator you can go look at online, but it could take, I forgot what, I think it took us, there was one I looked at, one ask that we had, we went from a 3.2 to a 4.0, and it was over 100 5-star reviews to get there. I mean, it's a lot. So and it's, it can be challenging getting, a lot of people, you ask them for a review and they got great service. They're like, oh yeah, I'll get to it. And that's fine. But anyway, but we take a lot of pride in this, and we watch, as owners, we watch this pretty carefully. Because if someone's not happy, they're going to let you know about it, and they're going right to Google. So for better or worse, that's what they do. And so anyways, but it's a lot more challenging to get the people that are happy to the one really instance where, so we do monthly events with our residents, and that's a good time to ask for reviews there, especially if they're getting tacos or ice cream or whatever. Probably, at least I don't know, I like all those, and so I'm probably happy. And they probably are too, and so that's a good point for being able to ask for a good review. So
Yeah, just one other thing to add on that too. I think it's important for anybody that's either wanting to invest in apartments or be operators too is you're really not going to be able to please everybody as much as you try to. So that one review on the right, that was actually I think that was when we were doing the roof, Dustin. But obviously you got banging on the roof when you're installing a new roof. So it's very expensive. It's for their own benefit, but you're still going to have people that push back against that stuff no matter what. They're going to resist change. And so it's just kind of words of encouragement more than anything. No matter how hard you try, there's always going to be somebody that is not pleased at the end of the day. So you always got to try to do the best that you can for the masses. Um, and over time, that's gonna really build the reputation of the community. But at the end of the day, you can't please everybody. There's always going to be some people that are going to complain, no matter what, even after we're investing millions of dollars in this property.
yeah, and this is so we do a lot with our team. We really just want the biggest thing, because like honestly, so the biggest the most important person on a property is the manager. And we want to make sure, we want to, our whole goal is to give that manager all the tools that he or she could ever need to succeed. And so we have a lot of training, a lot of tools. There's a lot of software that we pay for just to help take the burden off of that manager. Because if you think about it, so this manager, maybe they're making 70,000, and they're managing, this is a $25 million asset. We got, some other assets that are 30, 40, 50 million, and they're making, so I mean, there's a lot of responsibility on those managers, and gosh, we tried to do everything we can to just show our appreciation to them, because yeah, they have plenty of people that come in and are very nice and polite and all that, but like Hayden mentioned, you can't please everybody, and they do have people that come in or an upset, nothing sometimes over us. Sometimes it's, they're mad about the property next door, or who knows. So but anyways, we try very, very hard just to provide lots of training. There's, you can, if you kind of, it's hard to see it, but on the left there's the window, and you kind of it's called weekly, it's a weekly management report, WMR. And so we use that. They have to fill that out, take some time, but I think it's a pretty vital tool. It really keeps people, there's a level of accountability, but there's also just reminds people, hey, that's the goal, that's what we're striving for, and they have to fill this out every week. So it's just kind of a constant reminder. Yes, there's work involved, but it also helps them to do their jobs and perform, and to hit the numbers for all of us on this call. So market trajectory. So we've in general, I think we'd kind of mentioned at the beginning of the call, there were a lot of apartments built over the past few years. You had cheap money, and now you don't have cheap money. Now you have more expensive money. And so, so you had a lot of apartments that were built, and now people are not building, and they have, so as interest rates went up, it didn't make sense to go build. And so everything that's being built now was kind of, that process was started in probably 21, 22, maybe some stuff, went over into 23, but a lot of that was built then. And so, if you kind of, I'll start on the right graph on the right side of supply demand. So if you see, anyways, so if you look at the green is kind of, is outpacing, that demand. And if you probably look into Q2 and Q3 of this year, that may have even exaggerated a little bit more. There's some other metros where that delta is even greater. So, anyways, but we did see, with inflation and with everything else, if you kind of, look at the two high peaks on that, towards the right side, um, you see those a lot higher than the green. That's kind of, when we saw some good rent bumps, and kind of higher inflation and all that as well. But the last, because of all the apartments online or that have come online, occupancy is softened some. Everyone expects that, occupancy and rents and all that should be in a much stronger spot, especially kind of, starting next year. So, because of that, supply demand's going down, or I'm sorry, not sorry, supply of apartments is going down, but demand is at basically the same pace. Houston continues to add about 100,000 people per year, and this year they're adding 12,000. Was it, Hayden, like 12,000 apartments or so? Next year's like 8,000, something like that. In 24, it was about 24,000. So this year is about half of what last year is. And then next year is going to be, a third or so, a quarter of what it was, in 24. So, and then I think 20, I guess 20, I don't remember if I've seen anything on 27, but anyways, should be, continue to go downhill, because it doesn't make sense to build right now. So,
Dustin, we do have a question from Natalie. Is the property considered Class A now, Ranchstone?
I don't know. Yeah, I'd say, I don't know, B plus, A minus maybe, but I'd say, I don't know. Hey, now your thought. I'd say more on the B plus side personally, but yeah, I don't know if you have any different thought there.
Yeah, I'd probably agree. A lot of times the, A, B, C, D is associated with the vintage of properties too. So it's, for a 90s property, it'd be hard to really compete or classify as the same ones that are, the 2020 builds and 2015 builds and stuff like that. But it's a beautiful property now too. The clubhouse renovation actually got nominated for an award, as well as some of the best remodel projects and garden style properties here in Houston. So, and it's, when you walk in, it's very pretty. It's very beautiful. So yeah, I think B plus is still a good category for it. I think you could probably make a little argument for maybe an A minus property now.
Okay, and that is all for our presentation. So we do want to share an opportunity with you, as you have seen all the Henry project. So Dustin, would you take us through the income fund and how it works with the Henrys?
Yeah, the income fund. So this is the second one that we've done. It's preferred equity, that's going into an existing deal. So, we have within this fund, there's 3 deals, and we're refinancing those deals into HUD. So some things to know about HUD. If you're going into HUD, it has to be stabilized, which the deals are. And then HUD kind of requires actually, yeah, they really want, because it's government owned, or the HUD is a government entity. They really want to make sure that the properties are really taken care of, which ours are. But they put quite a bit of money into escrow as well to keep up the properties over the years and all that. But yes, so basically with this, we have with these refinances, we have our HUD amount, our loan amount, and then the amount that's needed. And there's a gap, and so that's where this fund comes in to plug that gap. And so, anyways, we're able to offer pretty attractive returns. And so there's kind of a few things with this. So with preferred equity, you get paid after the lender gets paid, so which is attractive, and then before the existing LPs. So that's an attractive thing. And then with each of these, we have a tax abatement in place. And so that's how, honestly, we're able to pay a pretty attractive return, because with the tax abatement, our property taxes are big in Texas. I know a bunch of people, so they're from Texas. So those are basically, with the tax abatement, go away. Our property taxes are between $500,000 and around $1 million of the 3 properties that are in this fund. And so those go away. And so once that goes away, your NOI goes up, your value goes up, and your cash flow goes up. And that's how we're able to pay these returns.
So I think we do want to mention that how the fund is working differently compared to, like, say, if you just invest in the deal directly, is that there will be no depreciation. Um, so if you are looking for tax benefit, this would not be, I guess, the best vehicle. However, if you're looking for a regular payout at a higher percentage, it's more like an income. That's why it's called income fund. So, for example, if for people that have self-directed retirement account, typically when you invest in the deal with your retirement fund, you don't get the benefit of depreciation. However, the fund would be a good option for it, because it doesn't qualify for any depreciation, and then your retirement account cannot get any depreciation. So that's the difference. And other than that, it's just a higher steady monthly payout. It more serves as an income versus in the regular individual project. It's most of your payout is gonna come at the backside at sale. So that's the difference. So if you are interested in learning more, there's a QR code to take you to get more information, and also feel free to reach out to us for any additional information. I do want to go back on this map though. Um, Dustin, can you point it out the properties this
Oh
fund will
yeah.
be covering?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So it's the Henry Rosenberg, so bottom left, and then the Henry Deerbrook, kind of, I don't know how to, in the middle. And then the Henry Woodland Hills, which is not too far from there. So yep.
So those are the 3 properties the fund will be covered.
Yes.
Um,
Yep. 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 So
okay, so that is all for the presentation tonight, and happy to take any additional questions. If anybody still have questions that want to ask, feel free. Okay. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, and thank you all so much for coming. if there's nothing else, Natalie, you will get a copy of the presentation. We will also send out a recording to everybody. Feel free to reach out to us. Any questions regarding any project you've seen today, and the fund as well. Oh, Tiffany just put in the chat, there's a link if you want to set up a call, you want to talk about anything, any questions. So feel free to schedule a call with us as well.
And I also put the link to the income fund directly in the chat as well. So you can either scan the QR code or you could just click on the link there. But again, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Have a great night.
See you guys.
Bye, Aaron. Thank you
You
for
guys-
coming.
Hey.
Bye. See you, Aaron.